Hallo, welkom bij een nieuwe aflevering van Drumpraat. Vandaag hebben we toch wel een hele speciale editie, want we hebben een bijzondere gast. We zitten niet met hem in de studio, maar we hebben het online opgenomen. Deze drummer is een iconische Amerikaanse drummer en heeft vele drummers over de gehele wereld beïnvloed met zijn fantastische spel. Hij verzon fantastische nieuwe opvattingen, nieuwe grooves, eigenzinnig spel en dat ook in een iconische band, namelijk de Tower of Power. Mijn gast van vandaag is dan ook niemand minder dan David Garibaldi.
Hij loopt al, hè?
If you're hearing strange noise in the background, it's that gardener just showed up. It's Monday morning, so they show up on they're mowing lawns and doing crazy stuff outside. So if it's making too much noise, let me know.
No worries. I'm very good. I'm very good. Yeah, man. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay, ready? We're rolling. Hey, David, I'm so honored to have you on our show. It's a Dutch show about drumming.
Yeah.
We have a lot of views, drummers, music lovers. So this conversation is about drumming in the widest way we can talk about it. I know you actually all my life, my drumming life, as a player. As a matter of fact, my uncle, who was a great drummer, he introduced you in my world of music back in the days with some Tower of Power records, which I totally absorbed and totally perfect. And it was a great inspiration as I followed you, of course, through the years. And it is that a lot of drummers worldwide have been influenced by your way of playing, which is probably the biggest compliment a drummer like with your status can achieve in that way. Lots of people, lots of drummers have been inspired and try to play what you play and your way of starting. And it's interesting to talk a little bit about it because you started playing when you were 15 years old, right?
Drum set, yeah. But yeah, actually, drums, concert band and marching band and all that, school band program. When I was 10. I started when I was 10 years old. But drum set came when I was in high school, or they call it secondary school, I guess. I was 15 years old. So that's when the drum set thing started. Yes.
I heard that you were kind of inspired by a live show that you saw with James Brown.
That's correct. That's correct. My friends, let's see, I was 17. My friends took me to see James Brown. James Brown was really popular around here. He used to come every year. He'd do big shows all over the Bay Area, and he was on the radio. And, so he was very, very popular. So everybody knew about him. And, there was a tradition of bands with horns and all that stuff here. And so when we went to see him, it was in a place called San Jose, which is in the South Bay Area. San Jose Civic Auditorium was the venue. And so we go there, we went in the afternoon, and the doors are open. So we walk in, me and my friends, and the band is rehearsing. James Brown band is rehearsing. There's nobody there, there's just us. So we walk up to the stage, nobody says anything to us. They let us stay there, we're watching. We watched the rehearsal, then came back later for the show. I never saw anything like that, man. James Brown, man, he was another animal. It was really something,
And the way of playing of the drums, the typical style, that kind of affected you in what happened in the years after.
Well, it was like beats, I'd never really. It was the whole idea of like beats, and his thing was always about beats and groove and all that, and so. When you would come up in the music tradition, the tradition was like to come up in the jazz, education or classical music. That was kind of the way that education was done. It wasn't rock and, people didn't come at drums through rock and roll or anything like that. It was, school band, played jazz, big band, that sort of thing, snare drum technique. Mm-hmm. So My influence was, a lot was big band because I loved Count Basie and Woody Herman and all that, So Sonny Payne was another big influence of mine, and another hero. So I kind of had those things going on, like kind of a jazz influence, big band, and then, seeing James Brown, and that sort of changed everything for me. I realized, well, I want to do this. I thought that would be kind of cool to be in a band where, you can play beats.
Yeah, that's fantastic, right? But the style of how James is approaching the funk and soul grooves over there, and the drummer at that point, that helped you to develop that style that you became famous with.
Yeah, the thing about it has a lot to do with, I guess, the area here. Here in the Bay Area, we had like a tradition of like funky drumming and, funk music.
Mm-hmm.
Over here in the East Bay where I live, there was like a really serious tradition of that. Mike Clark comes out of that, Mike Clark and Paul Jackson,
Yeah.
And so there was just, that was going on, man. And so it influenced what was happening. There was Sly and the Family Stone. Sly Stone was on the radio here, and he was a DJ on the radio before he had the Family Stone. And so he was like a multi-instrumentalist, producer, played guitar, was a band leader, musical director for people. I saw him as a musical director on a big show here in the Bay Area. And so he was on the radio every night, influencing people, playing music. He'd play his songs live at night on the radio. He had a piano in the studio. So during his show, the songs that he was writing, he would sing them and play them just with him and the piano on the radio at night.
Wow.
It was fantastic, And so when he started his band, that was like very, very, very influential here in the Bay Area. Greg Rico, the great drummer with Sly, very influential here, So there was just a tradition of that. We came up in it.
Cool. So back in the days, and we talk about the 70s, right?
Late 60s.
How when you compare that timeline, when you see the timeline of those days up till now, what do you think should be the biggest difference between the 70s and the time that we live now?
Well, I come up in a tradition of being in bands. That was the whole deal. It's like there wasn't a freelance thing. When I lived in Los Angeles, everything was freelance. There wasn't really a band tradition there. There was a lot of fabulous, fabulous musicians. I lived there for 12 years. I have a lot of friends there, fabulous, fabulous musicians, but it's not a place where there's bands. And so it's crazy that you'd think that Los Angeles is not a place for bands, but it's a freelance, music scene because of the recording industry. So here in the Bay Area, we had a tradition of growing up, being in a band, getting together with people. You like what they do, you like the way they play, you make music together, and you do it for a long time. You have a team of people that you create music with. And so that was a huge part of the way that music was made at that time, in history. In the 70s, late 60s, early 70s, there were bands, lots of them, really, really good ones. And so when here in the Bay Area, you could go out at night, you could go see, all these great, great music and great bands and players that were associated with bands. And that's the thing that made the Bay Area really, I think, really cool and really unique. So Tony Williams associated with, Miles Davis, Elvin Jones associated with McCoy Tyner, people like that, John Coltrane. So those associations were really, really important because those type of things created a vibe. They created music. It created something that, was unique. And Mike Clark, with the Headhunters, Greg Rico, Sly and the Family Stone, those kind of things,
Yeah.
Freddie White, Earth, Wind and Fire, the drummers of James Brown, Zig with the Meters. Come on.
Amazing.
Yeah, fabulous bands, Purdy with the Aretha Franklin, all those bands, it just had personality, and the players in it had personality. And the difference today, it seems, is there's a lot of terrific players, but the emphasis doesn't seem to be on the bands as much as it is on the individual players, because there's not really a big band scene going on these days like there was when I was coming up. A lot of terrific music being made now, but it's just different. It's different the way that people do it, the way they think about it.
Do you notice also, because you still play a lot with Tower of Power?
Yeah.
Do you think that audiences changed throughout the years when you compare now with then?
Audiences love live music. They just freak out. They love the interaction with live players. They love to go see a band that plays live, that plays their music with no technology, basically just plays themselves,
Mm-hmm.
People love that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, that's what this is all is, it's art, you create, brings people together.
Yeah.
I love that. And, I love being a part of that. It's just an awesome thing.
Yeah. So if you take the walk through your career, how did you develop throughout the years your way of playing? When we start in the 70s until now, do you think, do you have some markers?
Markers. Well, Tower of Power always, to me, that's like my touchstone for truth, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
'Cause that's my home base. It's the place where I feel the most comfortable, the place where I feel the most creative, So I would say that all of my music life has been really, just being persistent, consistent, trying to make my music life as creative as possible, no matter what situation I'm in. I never really thought about it really in terms of like markers, although this pandemic thing, has been kind of weird because you had to come up with some different ways to do things.
That's true. Yeah.
So I don't know. I never thought about markers when I did my videos. That period, that was really a big learning period. My time with the Talking Drums guys, Jesus Diaz and Michael Spiro, that was like huge. I learned so much in those days. That was like kind of we were like a performing, traveling university. That's what it felt like. I learned so much about that music, about folkloric music, about tradition, and it made a huge impression on me, that still influences me, like today.
Where were we?
I can't remember now. Man, I got distracted. All of a sudden, I'm talking, and all of a sudden, I look down, and you're frozen. You're kind of like this.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, anyway, we were talking about your style.
Yeah.
And way of playing, and how you developed it. This unique sound you have.
A lot of that has to do with with the Tower. The guys. Emilio, Mimi, we call him. Him and his brother, and their crew. They were doing this when they were 15 years old. They started playing music together when they were 15, and called themselves a band even before they could play the instruments. They had the instruments in their hands before they could even play. They're calling themselves a band. And so, that was the tradition. They were making music up right from the very, very beginning. And so when I went to hear them the first time, they were playing really obscure cover songs and original songs and everything. They were arranging in their own way. Rocco had his real unique bass sound, and they sounded that way already, man. I mean, they were already doing it, you know. They were like 18 when I heard them, you know.
Okay, new chapter. So we have a lot of viewers, and I asked them if they had any questions for you. And you might happen to know that I am also already playing for about 30 years in a Tower of Power band, cover band we have over here. So we are very honored to play you guys' music. And the bass player of this band, you know him, is Tony Telgenhoff. You met him a couple of times.
Yeah.
And Tony, he had actually a question about, because you are playing with Rocco all the time.
Yeah.
And, well, he passed away, which is a big loss for all of us. And
Yes.
terrible, man. But how does your playing work out without him and with Mark, the new bass player?
Well, Mark is, you know, he's like another extension of like Rocco. You know, Mark is a fabulous musician. We've known each other, played together many, many years here in the Bay Area with other people, and you know, he's fabulous. You know, fabulous player.
Okay.
You know.
Does it influence your way of playing?
Well, I mean, we're creating. I mean, we're still doing the same things we always do with Tower of Power. You know. Now Mark is there, and Mark fits perfectly. You know, he's a creative force, plays a lot of different kinds of music, plays the style, Tower of Power style really well. Yeah. A great person. Mm-hmm. So, you know, a lot of energy, you know, high energy music, you know, that. You know, with Rocco, you know, he struggled in the, you know, toward the end of his life. You know, he had health issues, and that was a distraction for him, you know.
Yeah, I know.
So it made it difficult for him to really play the way that he was capable of playing because of that, you know.
Cool. Well, Tony also wants to know, what is your favorite Tower of Power piece that you want to play?
Oh, well, there's a number of them, but over the last couple of years, we've been doing on the serious side quite a lot. So, you know, I'm talking about in the years we were playing pandemic, you know, last couple of years. But, you know, up until that, we had been doing on the serious side. And that's a lot of fun to play, man.
Cool.
You got to have the focus.
Oh, really? What makes it a difficult piece to play, or such a cool?
Because it kind of look at it like it's a straight line, kind of, you know, you have this one groove that you're just holding right for really a long time. And there's horn figures going on all over the place, you know, and it's just a challenge. It's like you're on a kind of like this a tightrope sort of kind of, you're walking, you know. Amazing. It's fun. It's fun though. Really challenge, but great.
So Brian van Haren, he wants to know, when is a gig totally successful for you?
When is a gig totally successful? You know, that's a hard question. I used to have different requirements. You know, I used to want to play the gigs perfectly and that kind of thing, you know. But I stopped thinking that way. You know, I just kind of go into it now with whatever's going to happen. I mean, it's challenging music, you know, so we have a lot of you know, heavily arranged music, and it's you have to navigate your way through all this, you know. So I would say that, you know, getting through the set each night and, you know, feeling that you navigated your way through it well, you know, because it's a challenge. I mean, it's hard even for us, you know. That to me is like a successful gig when we've presented Tower of Power music, you know, to our very, very best of our ability, you know. I love that, you know.
Nice. Hey, and Robert van Gassel, he has this question. How do you manage to get such a great sound out of your drums while it looks as you hit them quite soft?
Ah, well, you have to have, I guess, good technique, for one, I work a lot on that. I think sound is really, really important. The better sound you have, the way you hit your drums, the whole thing about ghost notes and accented notes, that concept that I use, for the sound levels, it makes a huge, huge difference. And, the teachers that I've studied with always, for some reason, taught me about the maximum amount of force and activity in a small area. It was never like this. It was always much smaller space. Your hands are always down, and like martial arts, generate a lot of force in a small distance. So it's like that. And of course the way you tune your drums. John Robinson told me long ago. We did a gig together. I think we did this thing called Big Drummers Camp in Japan. So we were at this with Yamaha drums, and we were at this camp for a whole week in Japan. So we talk, hanging out all the time. And he said, man, you got to play Remo Ambassador heads. Really? Because I was using the pinstripes all the time.
Yeah.
And he says, you use those, your sound is going to be huge. They're easy to tune, and you're just going to have this really consistent, big, big sound with lots of tone all the time. Well, I didn't believe him, right? So I kind of ignored it for a while. Uh-huh. And then I decided one day, well, let me just try this. It was unbelievable. The amount of tone that came out of my drums, how easy it was to tune them. And it was just, I realized what he's talking about. Here's John Robinson, the studio, king, and who always has a really great sound. I've heard him play live, studio, everything, and he always has a really killer sound.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is, his head combinations and tuning and all of that stuff,
Oh, man.
That's a part of it.
Cool. Interesting stuff. I have another question from Jarda van der Meulen, a real Dutch name, van der Meulen. What is your approach to creating a groove to a new song? With I guess if you're in the tower context, guys bring in songs for us to play. They'll bring in like a chart, an idea for a song. And then we start working on it. They kind of like throw the ideas into a pot, and we kind of all contribute. It's like everybody is in on it. Mm-hmm.
Once in a while, Mimi will say, give us an idea that we have to specifically play, or somebody will, once in a while, not that often. But like Serious Side was a bass line that Emilio came into the rehearsal and he goes, dee-dump, bump, bump. So he had that line. He says, I want you guys to put something to this. Okay. So it took us a minute, but that's what we ended up with, was that. Uh-huh. Nobody says, no, it doesn't work, in our situation. We don't really use that a lot, tell people, no, that doesn't work. We experiment. And we just kind of go where it goes, and everybody gets a chance. It's very free and very open. Not a lot of rules. We sort of make our own rules about how to create.
There was a time that you left Tower of Power for a while. Did we have? Why did you do that? Actually,
it was 4 times. It was 4 times.
Really?
Yeah. It was 4 times. It was 4 times. Because they were a bunch of drug dealers and criminals and crazy people, and I didn't want to be around it. And these were like guys who were, my family basically, my brothers, and they decided that crazy behavior was what they wanted to do, and I didn't want to do that.
Okay.
And so every time I'd leave and come back, it was the same story. Nothing changed, So eventually, this last time that I came back, uh, everything had changed. They put away all that stuff and were ready to get serious about making music. So I thought, okay, cool. I can stay.
They became adults.
Exactly. Well, sort of. Musicians. I don't even call musicians. Adults. I wouldn't do that. Go
No.
that far. But yeah.
So we were talking about your audition in for the Tower of Power at the time.
Yeah. What about it?
Well, you had to do an audition? That was the question.
Well, it was sort of an audition. I mean, I was invited to come and check out the band, so I did, and loved it. Knew that I was going to be in it even before they knew I was going to be in it, and so I Emilio came and played with the group that I was, playing with in that club, and he liked it. Invited me to come and play with the band, so I went to their rehearsal, and we just it was magic. We just kind of fit together, and that's what we did. That's how it started. It's pretty simple,
Yeah. The best way.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great.
So David, you were born in 45, right?
46, yeah.
46. You had a very impressive and long career so far. So now that you are in this moment in your life, reflecting to your whole career, how do you look at it?
To be honest,
Yeah.
I don't reflect, because I'm still doing it. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm still involved in it. I'm still creating, still working a lot. So I don't think about legacy or any things like that. Others can do that. The story is still being written as far as I'm concerned.
Yes. Do you feel like when you play now, physically, do you notice a difference in what you can do or what you can't do, or don't you feel any difference?
Well, there's differences in that, I've had some physical challenges in the last couple of years, an accident and some other things, so I had to work my way back from those things.
Yeah.
But then in terms of like what I play and what I can't play and what I can play, I mean, those are like decisions, I mean, I make creative decisions, some things, some ways I don't want to play that way anymore. Some of the ways that I used to play, some of the ways that I built beats and that kind of thing, I wasn't, some of those things still interest me and some not, but it's just part of what you do, So yeah, in some ways, it feels really, really comfortable, it feels really, really good, in some ways, like it always does, I'm reaching for things. I'm trying new stuff all the time,
How do you look at the new generation of drummers now?
Oh, they're fantastic players. So there's a lot of terrific playing going on, lots, but I still like bands. I still like listening to bands, and players by themselves, that's okay. I mean, but I like to listen to players together. I like to listen to them in group situations, where they're playing great music. I love that.
Is it you work with Tower of Power, and do you still do other stuff?
Well, when there's opportunity, of course. I'm working on a book project right now for Hudson Music. Um, I have a recording project that I'm doing with some guys here in the Bay Area that's, quite interesting and fun and cool. Uh, I do, occasional sessions for people. There's one that I just did for World Hunger. It's something with a whole bunch of drummers on it doing a Beatles song, and we did tracks and video and all that stuff. So I guess that's coming out in sometime in the fall. Um, so, my life is Tower Power. I mean, that's all really I'm concerned about. And,
Really?
being my best for that. I have students, I teach a lot, which I really enjoy, and helping people get where they want to go, and, learning, taking lessons when I can, studying, getting into things,
You're still taking lessons?
Yeah, whenever there's something that I want to know, I call somebody. If I have if I'm having difficulties with something, you know, um, I'll get a lesson or I get advice. One thing, I have a lot of friends, and so I'm just call them up, and
Do you still have an artist that you admire or that you are very interested in working with this artist and you haven't been in that opportunity doing so?
you know, uh, yes and no. Uh, I never did get the chance to work with Chick Corea. Always thought that would be a really fun thing to do. But then I was always involved in doing other things. I was, Tower Power and other stuff, and it never worked out. Plus, like that was like Dave's gig, and and a couple other guys, Chick was doing select music with those people. That's
Mhm.
cool, Um, I kind of never really think about like that because my whole dream, I'm living the dream that I have, and that's being with Tower Power. I'm not kidding. I'm not really, I don't really think about playing with other people. I just think about playing with my band. I'm not kidding. It's crazy, but that's how I think.
You have a happy marriage.
I do, and it's not, it's like every other marriage, there's things about it that kind of get crazy sometimes, but you work things out. You work together. You make it happen. That's what Tower Power is.
So I actually have one final question, and that's about your legacy that you're probably not aware of. But do you hear David Garibaldi influences in the present drummers?
I don't. I honestly don't know what to say. I don't listen for that. I don't try to see if what I'm doing is somehow infiltrated its way into other people's playing or thinking. Honestly, I'm trying to make the best music that I can. I'm trying to be as creative as I possibly can. I'm trying to be as consistent as persistent as I possibly can, and I'm trying to learn. So I think if I look around and try to just see what if people are paying attention to me, that's never been my focus. I've never really thought of it like that.
Well, I'm pretty sure that you have been influencing a lot of generations of drummers, and
And I appreciate that. I appreciate
yeah.
people's, kindness and all of that stuff. Legacy, I have, I guess that remains to be seen what it is. I'm just going to try to be the best that I can. And that's as much as I can do.
So what's the plan for the coming weeks? You are rehearsing with Tower of Power for a new tour?
Yeah, we start Wednesday.
Oh wow.
We're going to leave it for Los Angeles tomorrow. Um, we start rehearsing. We rehearse for 3 days. Then we have a show at the Hollywood Bowl in LA on Sunday, next Sunday.
Amazing.
Then come home for a couple of days. Then we head out to the East Coast and we start working. We start doing Tower Power style stuff, just kind of shows everywhere and, busy, up until the end of the year. At least
Amazing.
that's what the plan is. That's what the schedule says.
Yeah, man. Any Europe gigs coming up?
Well, Europe travel for us here, it's really tough. I mean, I just went to Italy for a month with my family to see, stay with relatives and that sort of stuff. And, we had to have testing, COVID testing and all of this stuff. And It was crazy, you know. I don't know about touring in Europe until next year. That's what I was told, you know.
Yeah.
I know lots of people are planning tours for next year. I know a lot of my friends are, you know, they're going, but next year they're not going now. You know, I think Antonio Sanchez is there. He's been in Europe. He was in Italy. He might still be in Italy, you know, but he was there doing something, you know.
Yeah. Cool.
You guys are out doing stuff, but it's still very quiet on the international touring, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, on national level also here in Holland, we don't have a lot of gigs here. It's still very, very difficult.
Yeah, it's getting started here, but you know, with all the controversy about masks and vaccination and you know, all the, you know, the stuff, unbelievable controversy over things. But that has kind of slowed everything down considerably, you know, as you know.
Cool. So, well, David, I hope you guys have a fantastic tour, and that everything will work out as planned. Hope to see you someday here. Let's meet.
Yes, that would be great.
And I'm very happy that you are in the show, and thank you very much for this talk.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, man. You know, it's my honor to be on your show.
So, David, have a good day today, and good luck with everything you do. And I hope to see you someday, man, in real.
All right. All the best. Bye-bye.
Good luck. Bye.